So would you look at what's back? This 2013 Santa Fe with the parasitic draw or the battery going dead. Customer picked it up last week. I had it 4 or 5 days and it started fine, and I had 23 milliamp draw. You can see the battery voltage is down to 9.9 volts, and of course it's dead. Now I'm going to put the amp clamp I'm going to set this down. So that's exactly what I got with the real amp meter the other day. I got the amp clamp on the negative cable. There's only one ground cable on this thing, and it reads 23 milliamps, 23 milliamps, 0.023. So what the hell is killing this thing, and what is coming on? Customer picked it up. It started when he picked it up. I'd had it for 4 days. The next morning it was dead, and he has to boost it to get it going. So I boosted this thing, started it, drove it in the shop, but I didn't disconnect the battery this time to put the amp meter in series. I just got an amp clamp over the battery cable, the negative cable, and I got a battery maintainer on it. It's putting out 9 amps right now, but I've got 2.5 amps of current flow, and I got the doors closed. Nothing obviously on. It's got to be a significant drain. Oh, the interior lights are on. Why are the interior lights on? Why aren't they shutting off? They were shutting off before. He had this one manually shut off on the front. Checking to see if there's a override switch on this thing. Why are the interior lights on? And I see there's a door ajar message on the dash. You see that red light? Now why didn't it go off? So I wonder if one of the latch switches is sticking, like the tailgate one or something. Oh shit. The left rear door was open. Let's see what happens now. So the left rear door was ajar. Damn it. I didn't notice that indicator in the dash. The door was not latched, but that was me. I went in the back to look for the battery charger, and I didn't close the door. So let's see, the interior lights did go off after about 10 seconds. Interior lights are still on. So it's dropped down to 190 milliamps, 150 milliamps. I gotta recheck this clamp to see if it's zeroed. So it's not. Let's zero it. Put it over top of the cable again. Something's going on. So there's some kind of digital activity going on there. This amp clamp is finicky. Shows 21 milliamps now, 11 milliamps with the amp clamp off the cable. I'm putting it back on the cable now. Now it shows 21. That's the trouble, you gotta wait for modules to time out. So I opened the door, Close the door, we'll wait for it to time out now. It's 12:03. So it dropped down to 53 milliamps after about 60 seconds. Still 12:03. I'm going to try and zero this amp clamp again. Where's the damn button on here? Well, it's reading 11 milliamps off the cable. Put it on the cable and it reads 32. So that's 21 milliamps. Something is staying on this vehicle occasionally, but it's not doing it right now. Again. So I started it and ran it, and I turned the AC on in case the AC compressor clutch relay sticks, but it's not. I shut it off, obviously took the key out of the ignition, opened and closed the door, and waited a minute for the interior light to shut off. Now it's at 480 milliamps, but you notice it's like the digital pulse, so there's some kind of a module that's awake, polling the network. Now this does have a car starter in it, but it's Hyundai factory, or at least a Hyundai accessory. $12.08. So I went for lunch, and you can see it's now 1:01, and we still have a 438 milliamp draw. Nothing obviously on in the vehicle that I can see, but something electronic is staying on, so I'm not going to touch any doors. The interior light is not on, but something is staying on. Let's check some fuses. So after resetting the amp clamp, it's actually 2.8 amps of current draw, but you can see it's something digital because it's cycling on and off, and yet there's nothing obviously on in the vehicle. So I'm not going to disconnect the battery because that might cause the module to reset. So we get average of 673 milliamps, but it's obviously something electronic because you can see the graph here. And I've tested voltage drop across every one of the smaller fuses, and I don't have anything more than 0.1. Everyone stops at 0.1. I pulled all these maxi fuses out one at a time, and nothing's changed. So I wonder if there's another fuse panel. So I opened the driver's doors, and I put back down to 670 milliamps. I put vice grips on these to hold the switches in. Now I'm going to look under the dash for fuse panels. Okay, so I'm checking the fuses under the driver's side of the dash here. And as you can see, that one on the meter is 0.1. That one's 0.1, but this one, now it's 0.1. Maybe it was this one here. Well, every one is 0.1, and that's 0.1 millivolt. I thought I found it, but I maybe wasn't making a connection on the fuse. I thought this one here was the one. No, maybe I wasn't making a connection on the fuse. Come on, there's only 4 left. If you don't make a connection on the fuse, you might get a false reading. Like I thought I had something there a second ago. There's only one fuse left. tested every fuse. Okay. So this is why I hate sketchy amp clamps. And this is a snap-on amp clamp. So on this amp clamp, it is indicating, you know, I can't dual channel internal amps and external amps on the Vantage Pro, but it's showing an amperage draw here. But a real ammeter connected in circuit shows 26 milliamps, 23, 26 milliamps. So I'm going to try another amp clamp. So another snap-on amp clamp shows 29, 30 milliamps. This shows 26, 28 milliamps. And on the same cable. So this amp clamp that I was using, which by the way I changed the battery in, was leading me down the garden path. So now I'm back to square one now. I don't know what's killing this battery, because when I got to it this morning, it was 9 volts, 9.9 volts. So I turned the disconnect switch on, turned the key on, and I checked the rear wiper to make sure it was functional. Used the wiper and washer and shut everything back off again. And now we're back running the current through the ammeter, and we got 450 milliamps, 0.45 amps. And it's been like, well, it's probably been 7 minutes or so, so I'm thinking something is staying awake. I checked voltage drop across all the fuses, the mini fuses, and none of them have a voltage drop, so I'm going to go inside the cab and check under the dash again. So we're sitting at a flat 450 milliamps, and I tested every fuse in the passenger compartment under the driver's side of the dash, and none of them have a voltage drop. So I started thinking, what if it's something that's unfused? Now this thing had an alternator put on it already, but I'm on the alternator output wire with an amp clamp, and it's 442 milliamps. I can't get at the alternator output terminal to disconnect it, and it's live. So it's like a bad diode in the alternator is causing this, or the voltage regulator in the alternator is causing it. But this alternator has been replaced, I'm sure of it. So I'm disconnecting the alternator output wire, and it's live while we're watching the parasitic draw here. There. It's the damn alternator. Let's put the nut back on. All I did was pull the wire off the alternator, the output wire on the alternator. Now the draw is gone. So I'm going to reinstall it. Good thing there's nothing steel around the... Got a little short stubby wrench here. I'm going to reinstall the alternator output wire. And I'm going to cycle the key on again, see if I can recreate the condition. So it's back down to 23 milliamps, which is what we had before. So I'm going to turn my disconnect switch on, turn the key on, and then turn the disconnect switch open again. So we got 840 milliamps. I'm going to give it a few minutes, see if it dropped down to 500 or 450 again. So it's dropped down to 450 millivolts again. I'm going to disconnect that alternator output wire again. Get my hand down there. There it goes. So I can recreate the problem if I connect the battery and turn the key on, turn the key off. It starts at about 800 milliamps, drops down to about 650, then it drops down to 455. And you can see the draw on the amp clamp here, which is not 100% accurate, 430. That's on the alternator output wire. And I've got the control wires at the alternator unplugged, and it didn't make any difference. But if I take that feed stud off the alternator down there, focus, then the draw goes away. But then if I reconnect it, it doesn't come back until I cycle the key. So that's interesting. Now, he did say that the regulator or the alternator was replaced, but I can't tell for sure. It doesn't look all that new. So I figured out why I was having difficulty finding this. You can see on that amp clamp right now, let me focus on this, roughly 430 milliamps. If I disconnect the battery and reconnect the battery, that problem goes away. So I'm disconnecting the amp clamp or the amp meter, so there's no draw. I'm reconnecting it, and there's no draw, as you can see. If I cycle the key to the run position, which I'm going to do, turn the key disconnect switch on so I don't blow my fuse. And the voltage regulator wakes up the alternator. As you can see, I got a 442 milliamp draw, and it won't go away. I've waited 20 minutes and it stays there. But if I disconnect the battery, it'll go away and it won't come back, as you saw me disconnecting the output cable on the alternator with a wrench. So if you did in fact have this alternator replaced, it should theoretically be under warranty, but I got to find out from him when it was done, how long ago, and talk to the dealership.